After a transitional year for the Buffalo Bills, they added to their roster. Will it be enough to stay on top of the East and get over the hump in the playoffs? We're exploring that today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Crabbs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to issue a big thank you, shout out, and welcome to our everydayers. Those of you who never miss a single episode, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins.
Joe, happy Friday to you. Happy first place in our latest division day to you, which just so happens to be the team very well represented. That pullover is not the training camp pullover, is it?
It was a few years ago.
A few years ago. Have you seen the training camp hats this year?
It's on my head right now.
That's your training camp hat?
Yeah, that's the one, yeah.
You're happy with it?
Yeah, I'm satisfied. It was a buyable hat.
I'd like it a little better if the outline was red and then the inside matched the outside.
All right, well.
That's my 2 cents. Not that derail us and get us off track here, but at least we're talking about the Bills on the
right.
The ad lib on the front end of the show. Why don't you set the table for everybody here?
So as we've done for all but, I guess, 9 teams in the league, we've gone through and assessed the rosters, studied these depth charts, and Kyle and I are putting every player into different buckets: roster cornerstone, quality starter, rookies, adequate starters, replacement level, quality depth, non-roster caliber, incomplete evaluation, or a practice squad developmental player. Every bucket has a different numeric value associated with it. The positions are weighted in terms of importance. And by the end of a couple weeks here, as we've worked through this for several weeks already, Kyle and I will have put every roster through the same microscope, and we'll be able to stack these rosters, stack individual components of the rosters, and really have a great understanding for the landscape of the league entering 2025. And so we're doing the Bills today. We'll get to the back seven. We'll get to the trenches, but we start with the offensive skill players around Josh Allen.
So you look at this group. Khalil Shakir gets a contract extension. James Cook's looking for his. I still believe in Dalton Kincaid as the first round pedigree and what you saw he was coming out of college. We had the in-season trade for Amari Cooper that's since been transitioned away from Keon Coleman. A lot on his. Didn't he call his own rookie season trash recently? Did I see that?
Yeah, he said it's either good or it's bad, man. He said that expletive is trash, which I think post-injury Keon was definitely trash. I think pre-injury Keon had me thinking, might be able to go.
Gabe Davis, right? And so it's more explosive.
With a little more yards after catch, with all due respect to Keon.
I like some of their hedges here with Josh Palmer's a really sturdy player. I don't think he's a super sexy player, but as a part of this snapshot, like what he and Elijah Moore, the foil of those two guys as a potential third wide receiver, along with Coleman and Shakir, obviously Curtis Samuel. There's a lot to work with here. It's just that it doesn't have that Stefon Diggs 1,400-yard player type of ceiling.
And that was the intrigue of last year with this Bills team and transitioning away from Gabe Davis and Stefon Diggs is, like what type of identities does it take on? And I thought you saw it evolve quite a bit where it's not really about any skill player that's not Josh Allen, right? They buy into this everybody eats thing and unselfish. That was a big word post Stefon Diggs, unselfish. And it's not just about like not caring about who's getting the production, but doing the little things, right? Running those for love of the game routes, being willing to block, all the little things that work together to matter in an offense. And so, no, you're not going to find Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson in this group, but what you're going to find is a bunch of complementary skill sets around Josh Allen that gives him the freedom to just run the play. And we know that Josh is an instinctive player. We know that he's more of a visual type quarterback. And for him to not have to be burdened by 150 targets to Stefon Diggs. It gives him freedom to operate. And I thought we saw not the most productive version of Josh Allen, but the best version of Josh Allen last year, as he, still did Josh Allen things, but didn't force stuff, right? It was like an all-time year in the history of the league in limiting negative plays, and whether it's sacks or turnovers. And I think the makeup around Josh Allen allows for that. And I think they added to it this year with better separators and Josh Palmer and Elijah Moore that I think are more stylistic players to what has worked well with Josh Allen in the past.
Yeah. And this was a big piece of the James Cook story that I did for A to Z Sports. I think it was beginning of about a week and a half ago. But the Stefon Diggs experience and what you learned through that, as far as what Josh Allen became without that central piece, whether you got role players, whether you got a star player, whether you got an everybody eats mantra, Josh and his evolution makes the sum of the parts more important than the individual parts, because he's the engine in which it all runs around and runs through. So to have, I think, a complementary skill set, I have Khalil Shakir as a quality starter. I have James Cook as a quality starter. But I think in these respective environments, they are quality starters. If they went somewhere else, would I grade them the same way? Like, what would the production look like? And I think that's part of the question. And that's not a slight against those players, because some of the best players in the league are the best players in the league because they're more valuable to the team and the situation that they're in than they are individually. And that's kind of, from a team building perspective, how you find, more often than not, surplus value. The contract extension Khalil Shakir signed, outstanding value, right? You compare it to the Josh Palmer APY, and I think that's what really stands out is you got guys that you know what they are in your system. You have a high floor of expectation for what they're going to give, and then it's just a matter of those guys being put in the right situation and the guy who runs the whole thing making the right decision to get the right guy the ball at the right time.
Gives me joy to hear that you're a Dalton Kincaid believer. He had a great rookie season, man, an all-time, an all-time, like a top 10 season in terms of rookie tight end production. And then last year, everyone was so excited, whether Stefon Diggs is gone, Dalton Kincaid's the first rounder. He's going to get 120 targets. And boy, did he let a lot of fantasy owners down and a lot of prop bet owners down. But ultimately the guy played through a lot of injuries, which I think tell the story. And, I think as you move up the ladder, it's not always linear, right? And so he was adjusting to kind of being the expected focal point of the offense. And Kincaid was actually per route run, he's the highest targeted tight end in the league last year. They want to throw him the ball, and they're going to.
That's
I think it's just you wouldn't think it, but it really is. But how about I want another Dalton Kincaid stat? On his targets 10 yards or further down the field, only 37% were catchable, the lowest in the league of any player. So him and Josh Allen need to get on the same page in terms of their chemistry so that they can be better for each other. But yeah, I think he's a big part of where this offense is going. James Cook obviously should get an inspired effort with the money he wants. He wants to get paid like Derrick Henry. Well, let's see if he produces like Derrick Henry this year and if that money comes from Buffalo or not. But I think there is a lot of ceiling with this group. A lot of young players, like you mentioned, a Keon Coleman. You add a Palmer and an Elijah Moore to give yourself some more route runners to go with Shakir and Cook, who are kind of the most established players in this offense. And you tie that to Josh Allen, and you can kind of see the vision. I think if you were to insert another quarterback into this, you might wonder. But I think Josh Allen is
Mitch.
We don't want to see Mitch Trubisky here or Mike Weiss. We don't want to see that. No,
I don't want to see 17, but I don't want 17 to get hurt either. So could you trade Josh Allen and we can watch it with Mitch?
Yeah, I don't think there's a package out there that the Bills would say yes to.
Yeah, probably not
for Josh Allen,
because you can't trade first round picks for beyond 3 years, right?
Yeah, and then Josh is he's so Buffalo, right? You talk about a guy that just like endears himself to a city and an organization.
It all matters, man. Like everybody thumbs their nose at that kind of stuff, but it's very real. I'm sorry, it is. Like within the It's tough for places like New York, right? And we've seen that with the struggles of New York quarterbacks and who fits. And the only actual New York football team is this team. And they got the perfect quarterback for their group.
You already have a lot of fans in Bills Mafia, Kyle. You don't have to butter them up like that.
Yeah, come on. I got to know. Click next time I do a Bills Mafia showed up for my Bills story that I wrote for A to Z. So I got to make sure we keep everybody all gassed up to read more things about the Buffalo Bills.
All right. Speaking of gassed up, how about this offensive line that's returning its top 9 players? We'll talk about that. And the D line, where the Bills made a ton of investments on the other side of it. So, folks, be sure to stick with us. Folks, football is right around the corner. We're previewing all these teams. If you want to get in on some of the futures bets, check out FanDuel. There's plenty of different props. If you think a team's going to win a certain number of games, if you think a player is going to get a certain amount of yards, like right now, you can get Josh Allen. The over-under for his passing yards on FanDuel is just under 3,800 yards. Like, probably go smash the over on that. Maybe, yeah, dude. Bills run the ball, man. You want to get into some of these other props. They have division winners, favorites for different betting odds. It's all there for you over at FanDuel. Plus, I'm having a ton of fun with Major League Baseball, building these parlays of players that I think are going to get a hit. That's been really fun. And then they have Dinger Tuesdays where you can like claim a profit boost, and it's like a 50% boost if you pick someone to get a home run on Tuesdays. So much fun over at FanDuel. Look, if you're new, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you're going to get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
And it was free money Friday with that 3,800 over under.
Well, I don't think Josh hit it last year.
No.
The thing about Josh Allen's MVP season, it was not his best statistical, like just yards and touchdowns. He's had way more yards and touchdowns. What he hasn't had before is such few negative plays, and done it with, what is perceived as not as much around.
Dude hit 4,200 for 4 straight years, and just because he dipped it by 69 yards, smash the over on 3,800. I'm sorry.
I mean, I have, but he only had 483 passing attempts last year.
The most stupid stat from Josh last year is a 2.8% sack rate. Drop pass. Yeah. 14 sacks as wonderful segue to talk about the offensive line, unless you have something else you wanted to follow up.
No, I was just going to say the pressure to sack ratio was like 8.2%.
So it's the offensive line and it's Josh.
Yeah, well, and the Bills will play 5-man protections. So that's the thing, is they want to maximize their eligibles.
Yeah, Joe Brady, dude.
But also you also kind of just trust Josh Allen to figure it out back there, right? Like you can stress the Bills with some blitz stuff, but they believe that Josh is going to figure it out and there's going to be outlets, and they were right about that last year. But it's time to talk offensive line.
Let's talk about this unprecedented stretch of availability. How many missed starts in the last 2 years?
1 is Spencer Brown missed against Kansas City in week 14 last year. The Bills won.
Just an unbelievable. Deion Dawkins, David Edwards, Connor McGovern, Osiris Torrance, Spencer Brown. You said the top 9 guys back.
Top 9.
Van DeMark, Van Pran Granger, Alec Anderson. Who's the 9th? Is it Grable?
Tylen Grable. He's probably my favorite backup Bills offensive lineman.
Okay, so that's a fun superlative that you've crowned them with. What's 6th round draft choice? And
you want me to talk Tylen Grable? I'll be happy to do it, man.
I mean, what else can we heap the flowers for Deion Dawkins anymore to say about how he's probably the most underrated offensive tackle in football?
I think people know. About.
Do
Dawkins.
They?
Yeah, they should. If you don't think Dawkins is a top 5 left tackle, you're not paying attention.
I mean, do you think people are putting him in roster cornerstone?
They should. I don't know what to say. If you don't, he should. One of the most unique players in the league.
I don't know that the casual fan still does.
I think Spencer Brown might have had a better season than Deion Dawkins last year, the right tackle. So if you don't know about the Bills tackle, Deion Dawkins and Spencer Brown are firmly one of the best 5 pairs of offensive tackles in the league.
We just got to get Jalen Phillips back. Knock Spencer down a peg.
We'll see. We'll see. He's handled it.
They played week 2. And Phillips coming off the Achilles. but I don't want Jalen going against Deion Dawkins. And get the
Chop gave Dawkins some good challenges late in the season.
The power, right, in the second matchup.
Yeah, wasn't expecting that.
Right. Well, he kept getting knocked around the first 8 games. So I have Dawkins as a cornerstone. Yeah. I have Edwards, McGovern, Torrance, all sufficient level starters, and then I have Spencer Brown as a quality starter.
We're close on this. I have Dawkins as a cornerstone, Spencer Brown as a quality. the guards, Edwards and Torrance, I have as sufficient. I have Connor McGovern as a quality starter. I think he's taking that step at center, and I bet you he gets at least what Dahlman got in his extension. He's in the last year of his deal. Yeah, I bet you he gets 14 plus.
14?
Yeah.
You think they'll hold on to him, or do you think Van Pran Granger is the round draft choice from last year will have been in the when nobody misses any time again for the third straight year? He'll have had 2 years of being groomed in the system on a rookie contract with Josh getting a new deal and all that.
Maybe more offensive line coaches should preach about how finishing is overrated, because when you finish, you just push guys into each other's legs and they get hurt. We don't care about finishing. We care that your hands and your feet are where they're supposed to be, and somehow your offensive line stays more healthy. Maybe it's something worth talking about.
Stay attached to the block.
Stay attached to the block, man. That's all we need you to do, man.
Displace, but don't disrupt.
Yeah. There's diminishing returns on certain levels of displacement, right? Like we talk about that with speed at times. So something to be said for that as well. There could be, I think, with Edwards and McGovern, they're both expiring contracts. And Osiris Torrance will be extension eligible after this season. And so you're looking at a situation where you can't have massively paid players at left tackle, center, right guard, and right tackle, right? So the Bills will probably have to make some concessions, and we'll see. Does James Cook walk after the year? Does Connor McGovern walk after the year? Does David Edwards walk after the year? They'll sort it out. But I think
good content idea.
Point being here, this offensive line, I think, is one of the better groups in the league.
I very much want to do that content idea. Priority of expiring contracts for Buffalo.
Okay. I mean, I've certainly fleshed.
You should prioritize this guy before this guy, but if this guy wants this much, then maybe we skip this guy and go down to the next guy, like we talked about with the Dolphins yesterday when they were trying to pay Rob Hunt and they were trying to pay Christian Wilkins, and then say, we can get Zach Sealer for 10.75 instead of Christian Wilkins for 24. Let's do that.
I'll pay Connor McGovern $15 million per before I do James Cook. I'll tell you that. So,
I would too.
All right, defensive line. Defensive line here.
One of the most aggressively overmade groups in football.
Needed it.
And needed it for the long-term outlook, not just the short-term. And that's what I like what they did, where you have short-term pieces like Agunjobi and Joey Bosa, but then you brought in Michael Hoyt, who's a younger player, and you drafted TJ Sanders and Deion Walker and Landon Jackson to be added to this mix, where you have Epinesa is an expiring contract. Bosa's on a 1-year deal. I believe Daquan Jones is also an expiring contract. You don't really know what you have in Dwayne Carter, who you took in the 3rd round last year, but even still, he's a stylistic different player than like a Deion Walker is. So you got penetration types, you got size types, you kind of reset the books. And they just have finished. I won't say finished. They've done this on the back end, right? Where the safeties, you flip the whole safety room over, and then you make a transition from Trey Wright, and you hit on Christian Benford, even though you drafted Kyrie Elam, and you're in the position to do it with Matt Milano, where Terrell Bernard's set to take the mantle as the primary linebacker, and you're paying Milano, and Milano's now in a contract year. Like, once you get deep enough into running the team, and you have your pillar players that you're paying, you have to be able to turn over the rest of the team. And for Buffalo to get this kind of influx in the defensive line not only helps it now, but will help set them up for future success to know who the hits are and get committed to the hits without having to pay Epinesa set a career high in snaps last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
He takes another 650, 700 snaps this year, hypothetically. Are the Bills going to pay him 15? 12?
No, I think they're going to say, welcome Landon Jackson. We're excited you're
right. Here. Landon Jackson, here you go. Now that's your job now. Yeah. But we'll have had a year to see how you are to know if we need to hedge our bet against you or not.
9 years of the same GM, that's the type of opportunities that you can create where you have succession plans that are in your pipeline and they can take over when necessary. But a lot of ceiling with this Bills offensive line or defensive line, excuse me. We'll tie a ribbon on that and get to the rest of the defense here on the other side of it. Folks, be sure to stick with us.
Sorry, we kind of glazed over how we grade this group. We just got done singing Brandon Beane's praises for the strategy of the roster building. You want to tag any of these guys?
Yeah, this is how I have it. I have Rousseau as a quality starter.
Yep.
I have Oliver, Jones, Hoyt, and Bosa as sufficient starters. I think Oliver and Bosa are certainly capable of being higher impact guys than that, but Bosa needs to be healthy, which he was at the end of last season, and Oliver needs to play like he did at the end of last season. But I haven't seen enough consistency from him to firmly keep him in that quality starter bucket. I have Ogunjobi as quality depth, and then you have and Epinesa as quality depth, and then the rest are really incomplete evaluations because they're rookies or second-year players in Solomon and Carter.
Yeah, I think that's the interesting thing about the group is a number of the names that you mentioned, including Jones and Bosa, are declining players that are bevied by guys that are total unknowns. What's the floor of the total unknowns? What's the lingering ceiling of the declining players? And it's a really interesting dynamic to weigh out. I have it graded very similarly to you.
Hopefully the amount of players here helps balance out the highs and lows of those possibilities, right? Because they're going to run 9 or 10 deep here with this rotation. So,
hey, you know who's envious of this group right now? The New York Jets.
Yeah.
Remember the Robert Saleh, nobody played more than like 500 snaps on that defensive line rotation. And we just got done doing them on Wednesday, and we said, yeah, that depth at the Jets defensive line is not what it used to be. Well, they're probably looking with some starry eyes at this group with what the amount of bodies that we have to work with here.
Talk linebacker here. Terrell Bernard has come along for the Bills as kind of their quarterback of the defense. Gets the splash plays, good matchup style player. And Matt Milano got healthy at the end of last year. I thought he had incrementally better. He came back in December and finished out the season. And I thought he got better as the season moved along. But it's a big year for Matt Milano. He's not 1,000 years old, just like Joey Bosa is not 1,000 years old. Like Joey Bosa turns 30 in July. I think this is Milano's age 31 season. I think there's been some good stories of linebackers that are aging well across the league. But for Milano, obviously, like all pro Milano into 2 seasons of injuries with a tibial plateau fracture and then a bicep tear. He took a pay cut, and the win for the pay cut for him was that his deal, they took off 2026 from his deal. He gets a free agency a year quicker. So you've got a lot of incentive for Matt Milano to be healthy and make the impact that he's capable of making. But if not, then I think they've solidified their depth. Dorian Williams, I think, has emerged as a 3rd-round pick, has played a lot, unfortunately, because of Milano's injuries. And I think he's gotten progressively better. And then they bring in Shaq Thompson. And look, Shaq's 31 years old. And back-to-back, he had a tibial, or he had a broken fibula and then a Achilles, right? So 2 bad injuries in a row, 31 years old. I think there's a level of just comfort, though, with him because he's been with McDermott. He could play the Mike Backer spot, and the rest of the depth is very, very young. And the Bills are going to play 2 linebackers. They ran 3.5% base defense, the lowest of any team in the league by the next closest was the Commanders at 6%. Right. The Bills, they're going to play 2 linebackers. In fact, they run a lot of dime now these days, where they'll drop another backer off the field. So depth is somewhat important for the Bills at linebacker, but really the story there is Bernard and Milano.
Yeah, and I have Milano as a sufficient level starter, and I have Bernard as a quality starter.
That's how I have it, yep.
Dorian I have as currently a quality depth player.
Same.
And Shaq, I have his quality depth, but you could go any right. Which way. Like, who the heck knows, right? Authentically, it's an incomplete evaluation because we have no idea.
Yeah, and he won't count against the scoring, so it'll be fine.
Secondary. And I hate you guys added Jordan Hancock. I bet you didn't think on your bingo card of names that was going to be first out of my mouth talking about this secondary. Did you have how high up on the odds list was Jordan Hancock?
Listen, Kyle, I think you started talking about some linebacker I never heard of with some team. It was like early on, and I'm like, so Hippolyte was that his name? Hippolyte?
Yeah, Ruben Hippolyte.
Was
it? Who did he get drafted by? Was it Detroit?
Whatever team that was, you started talking about him, and I've since prepared myself accordingly to never know what direction you're going to start things on. Chicago. I think we do the North first. Was that the first team we did? I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So better.
Yeah.
Be a 4th round pick, man. Come on.
I hear you, man.
Apparently, Brian Poles was like, I wonder if they'll have any highlights for this guy on the truck when they made the pick or something like that. They knew he was like a little off the reservation. But Jordan Hancock has the potential, in my eyes, to be an heir for Taron Johnson when the time comes.
Possible,
and
yeah.
That kind of value added at the 5th round. If you watch Buffalo and you know how their defensive structure works, you know how important Taron Johnson is to everything that happened. Now, Cam Lewis put on his Superman cape there for a hot minute last year. I was like, oh, he can do it too. But Taron's physicality and tackling, Hancock brings that to the table. So I was a big Cole Bishop brand guy in 24, drafted him in the 2nd round. I really like Jordan Hancock as an early day 3 guy. You guys got him later than I thought you should have. As part of this safety overhaul that's happened, the transition away from Poyer and Hyde the last couple years, Rapp and Hamlin step in next year. Now you got some youth guys behind it with Cole Bishop having a year in the system, and Hancock now potentially is another one of those developmental guys. I look at the safety room. I know the ceiling's not all pro Poe and Micah Hyde, but I think you're pretty sturdy. I've got Rapp as a sufficient level starter. I have Hamlin as quality depth. Bishop's an incomplete evaluation, and Hancock's obviously a rookie. And then, oh, by the way, Derek Forrest, who you guys signed in free agency, I think could have a little something to say about it when it's all said and done too. Carry 5. And I think you could tell me any of your 5 safeties, if they had to play, there'd be a role that they could fill that I'd feel pretty good about. And I don't know how many safeties rooms there are across the league that I could say that for.
Bills ran dime defense 15% of snaps last year, and I wonder if Jordan Hancock was envisioned for that role until, like you mentioned, maybe there was a plan down the line for him to succeed Taron Johnson. But that's not a role. I think that's probably a couple-year transition to getting the guy ready to handle all that's on Taron's plate.
Yep.
You mentioned the safety transition. Poyer and Hyde, obviously, like a legendary duo, but last year was a good year to transition away from that. They love Taylor Rapp. And then obviously Cole Bishop is a 2nd round pick, is pegged to be a starter this year. He had some injuries in the preseason training camp. He didn't even have a preseason, which I think opened the door for Damar Hamlin to hold down that spot. But I think this is Bishop's opportunity to run with Rapp as the starting safeties. Cornerback, hopefully, I mean, if people don't know who Deion Dawkins is, I guess you don't know who Christian Benford is, but figure that one out, folks. I have emphatically said that over the last 2 seasons, Christian Benford has been every bit of a top 5 corner in the league, and his arrow is.
You missed the chance to ask me that because I do that to you all the time. You should have set the table and said, Kyle, Christian Benford's a top blank corner in football.
What would you have said?
5.
Okay, all right. glad we got to the same conclusion. And then 1st round pick Maxwell Hairston coming in. And look, I think you can look at this Bills defense and really sniff out some stylistic changes where they got killed by short game and quick passes last year, like bottom tier pass defense, bottom tier 3rd downs, which is uncharacteristic. And so you can see the investments in the front to become better at pass rush, but these are some pretty big athletic additions to the secondary in a Maxwell Hairston, in a Jordan Hancock, even a Cole Bishop dating back to last year, where you just want to take the air out a little bit more, where the Bills they've been kind of leverage based and like, we're going to make it hard on you. But if you can make throws, you can probably get some completions against us, where I think the Bills, like even last year in their last 2 playoff games, divisional and AFC championship game against the Ravens and Kansas City, they play 40% man coverage. They hire Ryan Nielsen, Mike Pellegrino, who are man coverage, pressure type coaches with their backgrounds. I think they want to take the air out and play a little bit tighter and force the issue a little bit more, as opposed to saying, hey, we're just going to trust the technique and leverage of our defense and go from there. I think they want to be a little bit more assertive with how they take the air out and force the issue defensively.
Be interesting to see too how you've kind of heard some rumblings about trends across the league changing and getting out of some of the zone match stuff based off how offenses are kind of anticipating they'll be able to attack the zone match rules as far as switch releases and guys getting each other's vapor trails, pushing vertically up the field, and kind of get back to some of that more, I don't want to say landmark zone, but get out of some of those zone match rules and also play a little bit more man coverage. And that's all dependent on the quarterback that you're playing and their threat with their legs, or if they are an anticipatory spot thrower, and how you go about playing that, which Buffalo has a unique chance to play one of the guys who does that at the highest incidence of anybody in the league twice a year. It's not uniform on a week by week basis, but I mean, Hairston and Benford, you tell me these guys are going to get physical on the outside, and then even if it's just playing that on the outside and then allowing the bodies in the middle of the field with however you choose to get there to congest that the middle of the field, kind of force some of those low percentage throws. I think they're well equipped to do it. I think they got a great infusion of young talent to do it. They got a couple of guys who I think give you a pretty sturdy floor for the base of the depth. A couple of familiar year 2025, and we got Shaq Thompson, Dane Jackson, and Trey White living in the Bills' back seven with Sean McDermott, right? But they know the scheme.
Yep.
Now, you can't play it the same way with Dane Jackson and Trey White like you can with Benford and Hairston. Right. I think that's what makes those guys really important pieces to the puzzle. But I get all that to say it gives me a lot of comfort knowing that that's where the depth exists in this group, is it's guys that are highly familiar with the scheme.
A lot of investments on defense. That's been the problem for the Bills. They play usually pretty good regular season defense, but it falls apart against Kansas City in the postseason. And you could tell, I mean, for a team that didn't have a ton of resources, they still find a way to go and sign Joey Bosa and Larry Ogunjobi and Michael Hoyt and Derek Forrest, and then go 5 straight defensive picks to start the draft. Like, you know what the emphasis was here for a defense last year that was 23rd in EPA against the pass. I mean, you're talking bottom 5 third down defense, bottom 5 with your defense against quick passes that are short. They had a concentrated offseason to make sure that this defense doesn't get in the way of, what Josh Allen and company are doing offensively.
No mention through 33 minutes of Jake Camarda.
Boy, I'm concerned about it. Yeah. Jake Camarda and Brad Robbins. Yeah.
Big transition.
We'll see. The Bills, hopefully they don't have to punt very much, but they got 2 punters that were drafted.
You had the audacity to ask for Ryan Stonehouse this offseason.
Yeah. I know. And I got Jake Camarda.
How many punts did you guys have last year?
I don't know.
A couple. Two dozen punts. What's a higher number? Josh Allen sacks this year, or punts for the Bills?
Oh, punts.
It's punts for the Bills.
Punts.
Yeah. All right, we're out of here. We're going to the weekend with some punter jokes, as you would totally expect here on Locked On NFL Scouting. I'm Kyle Crabbs. He's Joe Marino. We appreciate you guys as always for checking out the show. Make it a great rest of your day. Make it a great weekend. We will talk to you all again on Monday.